So Paula, because you've gone through a lot of challenges and trials and tribulations throughout your life, I did mention that this is a podcast about AA and how you overcame alcohol addiction, and that's the biggest thing. So what drove you to resorting to alcohol to, I guess, as a fix to your everyday problems
Mm-hmm.
or everyday stress, you could say?
Mm-hmm. Well, so I started drinking in like when I was in high school, I guess, like grade 9, I guess.
Mhm.
So 13, 14, something like that. And I really just started drinking like most of us, like because I was curious and everybody else was doing it and all of that stuff. And I really liked the feeling. Like I remember even that first drink, I really liked that feeling of like, um, I'm a very nervous and shy person. I have a lot of social anxiety, and alcohol kind of allowed that to go away. Um, and at first, I was what most I would say would call like a pretty typical young person drinker who, you know, I was totally normal, um, teenager and totally normal in my early 20s, going to university, doing well in school, all of that, and binging on the weekends with my friends because that's what you do when you're,
Exactly.
19, 20. Um, and so I think at first my relationship with alcohol was more just um, getting over the social anxiety. Um, and um, and I think that it kind of started to slowly switch um, after my dad passed away.
Okay.
So I was in 2006, my dad passed away. And so I had just I graduated university in 2005. So I was like a year out and not really doing much of anything with my life, just doing, I don't even know what type of job I had, to be honest. I think I might have been working for Curves. Um, uh, and yeah, just like partying on weekends and stuff like that. And then after my dad passed away, it kind of became more frequent.
Yeah.
I went to Australia,
Oh, nice.
um, and I went for teachers college. I did not finish teachers college um, because, well, there were many reasons why I didn't finish teachers college. But I had a lot of fun partying, to be
I
honest.
don't blame you. It's Australia, so it's just like, hey, why not see a
And
kangaroo? And it's
they
like, hey,
drink a lot too. So I was just trying to, fit in. And then after I came home from Oz, I um, I met a man, and he was a daily drinker,
gotcha.
and smoked a lot of pot.
Mhm.
Um, Daily smoking pot as well. And I just kind of slid right into that lifestyle.
Mhm.
We got married, and uh, yeah, it just seemed kind of normal. Like I think because we both grew up with parents who drank pretty much every day, it seemed kind of normal.
Yeah, yeah.
But you know, one, possibly two glasses of wine isn't a big deal. It's when it turns into three or four or five.
Mhm.
Um, and so I think um, I started using alcohol and weed more as a stress reliever.
Yeah.
And I kind of, at that point, I kind of, I almost needed it at the end of the day. I wasn't quite to the point where I was, where you could tell something was wrong. I was just, I needed it every day. And then, so we had a daughter.
Okay.
Her name is Daisy. And she had major disabilities. So she was born with something called microcephaly, which means small head. And she couldn't talk or walk or any of the typical kid things she couldn't do. And so I became her main caregiver. And that is when at some point I stepped over a line and went from being a daily drinker who used alcohol at the end of the day to someone who used alcohol at the end of the day and sometimes in the early afternoon, and pot almost all day.
Yeah.
And so I used it really to, I felt like it made me feel more normal. Like I was just, you know, mummy with her mummy juice.
Yeah. Yeah.
Because there's a whole, you know, culture of mums drinking. And so kind of thought I was at least somewhat normal. And then it went into another dimension. So she passed away in 2016.
Oh, sorry to hear.
And I know you already know that, so your listeners know he knows my story. So, yeah, so she passed away, and then that was when I was like, fuck this life. I don't, like, what's the point of doing anything? I'm just gonna smoke pot all day and drink as often as I want, because I had nothing, like I didn't have a career or anything. So I just kind of, I just dove right into addiction, and it went into the phase where eventually anyways, it went to the phase where I could barely make it to noon without a drink, and I couldn't make it to like past 8 a.m. without pot.
Was it a specific type of alcohol that you drank, or was it like strictly just wine or anything?
I would drink anything, but it was mainly wine.
Gotcha.
Yeah. So, but yeah, so I got basically to the point where I was, yeah, drinking every day, almost all day long until I passed out.
So you said that you were married, or you are married. So I'll say we're married.
Yeah.
How was your spouse at that point? Was he a good supporter, in a sense that said, hey, I know you mentioned that he was a daily drinker and so on and so forth, but did he also indulge in it as much as you? Was it like a tag? Like, were you guys team, like just drinking together, or was it just you solo going by yourself?
It was us together. It was as soon as he got home, you know, we would smoke a doobie, and he would have his whiskey and I would have my wine. He also had a type of sex addiction. He was addicted to porn. So for most, like for the first couple of years of Daisy's life, that part of it didn't really, like I knew he liked porn, because who doesn't like porn? But I knew he liked porn. And but it didn't interfere with our actual life that much.
Mhm.
And then at some point, I think when Daisy was like maybe 2 or 3, he started basically spending his entire evening watching porn,
Mhm.
and drinking, and then smoking pot with me every once in a while.
Yeah.
So we were both really in the
You felt you guys were like separate then, in a sense.
we were separate in terms of like I wasn't sitting there watching porn with him, but we were both in our own addictions fully.
Mhm. Gotcha. So it was like really toxic, and it's sad to say this word's like a toxic environment than it
Mhm.
was during your time, I guess, of marriage. Because I think if, again, this is just me doing the assumption, if there was one, at least one of you guys being that supportive role for each other, your life or the path after would have been a lot different, and I guess more brighter, I would say.
Yes, yeah, I would agree with that. We definitely had um a very it was a very weird type of relationship. I now can see that he was quite controlling and narcissistic, and he was um, he wasn't violent in the sense of he wouldn't like hit me, but he was violent in the sense of if he got mad, he would throw things.
Gotcha. Gotcha.
Um, and so my whole life became, what can I do to make sure that doesn't happen?
Mhm.
Um, and um, yeah, and Daisy, like was a beautiful, wonderful girl who had a beautiful, wonderful life
Mhm.
despite all of this. Um, most of our, almost all of our like drinking and smoking pot, it would ramp up when she would go to bed. So
Yeah.
like we were pretty normal, even keel, and then she would go to bed, and then we would get drunk and high.
Were any of your friends involved in any of this? As in, like, would you go out during this time, have a good party, drink a bunch over there, and then came home? Or was it really just in your house, in your own bubble? It was just you and your husband at that time, just drinking all.
It was mainly me and my husband. When you have kids, it's hard to go out.
That's true.
So, um, not to say that we couldn't have, but yeah, like we stayed in and for the most part. And then when our friends did come over, though, it was to drink.
Yeah. Yeah.
So,
So this is an AA, I'll say, podcast, and how you overcame your alcoholism. So let's move to that then. What made you choose to curb your addiction, or I'll say, because again, as you mentioned earlier, we do know each other. What made you decide to stop drinking?
stop drinking. Um, okay, so I had what we call a bottom.
Hmm.
Uh, in AA, that's what we call it anyway. Um, and um, so my dry date is June 22nd, 2017.
Oh, nice.
Um, and at the end of May of that year, I was super drunk. I was living at my mom's at that point. And I was super drunk. She wasn't home. And I was crying and missing Daisy and feeling like everything was a piece of shit. And I tried to commit suicide.
Oh, wow.
Um, and um, but I am like an expert at hiding
Hmm.
my sadness from my family. Um, so So basically I ended up throwing up for 24 hours, and told my mom I had food poisoning, and and then continued on my way towards more pot and more alcohol, because I thought, well, I can't even kill myself properly, so might as well just drink myself to death. And so fast forward, I guess, to mid-June. I was, still at my mom's and drinking and smoking as much pot as I possibly can. My mom at that point was working a lot, like out all the time. So it was really easy to just kind of hide in my room, and she wouldn't really know what was going on. And I think at that point she might have, yeah, that's what it was. She was up at her cottage. And I was at home, in her home, and I had my husband and I had 2 dogs, and at that point we were still trying to share responsibility, and so I had the dogs that week because my mom was away, and I got to the exact same place, basically mentally, where I'd been in May, at the end of May, where all I wanted to do was kill myself.
Yeah.
But because I had already taken, so the previous attempt was with, my mom had a really big bottle of Tylenol PMs and mixed with like other Tylenols and I don't know. And I basically downed all of them. So there was no Tylenol in my house. And I had this like just split second of like, I was looking down at my dog and he was looking up at me with like so much love, the way dogs do. And I was like, I cannot do this. I can't like continue to be this person who gets ridiculously drunk and wants to kill herself. And this has to be it. So in a very drunken, cryy way, I wrote my mom, my 2 sisters, and my therapist a letter, an email, because I knew I had just enough, mental capacity to know that if I didn't do something right at that moment, I wouldn't do it. And the next would be the same, and so on and so on. So I wrote them an email saying I need help. I have alcohol problems, and then passed out. And the next day, was my first day of sobriety.
Yeah.
And I have an aunt who is an alcoholic and who has been sober through AA. So it kind of was my automatic go-to was AA. And so I called them and then found out about a meeting to go to. I got my best friend to drive me there because I didn't think I would be able to force myself to go by myself.
Yeah, I think that would be the hardest thing, going there. I think a lot of people make up their mind that they want to get help and they want to get fixed. But if they are the one going there, they somewhat say, you know what, maybe I was just joking. Maybe you second guess yourself in a sense. So I think if you have a good support, you're most likely to go there and continue that way.
Yeah. So that was my first AA meeting, and there was just enough information in that AA meeting, like just enough things that got through to my fuzzy brain, that made me go, okay, I need to figure out this AA thing. I need to try it and go all in, so that hopefully this problem that I have will go away.
Yeah.
So.
And how long have you been going to AA since?
I have been going to AA. I just celebrated 4 years in June. So yeah, so I've been going since then.
That's very good. So with AA, like, how is it there? Like, give me like, I don't know, 30 seconds of what AA is about. Because like how I picture AA, it's like just a group of people in a circle as I see on TV and everyone's just talking. My assumption is there's like group activities. There's more like, I don't know. Everyone's like sing Kumbaya. Like in all honesty, I don't like, I don't know.
Okay. So AA in a nutshell is just a group of drunks trying to help other drunks stay sober. It's not organized. There's a bit of organization at like a top level in terms of there's like a head office in New York, and then like Toronto has a head office, but everything else is kind of volunteer based. The only requirement is that you want to stop drinking, and so most meetings, so there's a couple of different types of meetings. There is a speaker meeting, which is where someone will speak for normally almost the whole meeting. So let's say 30 to 40 minutes. And they're just sharing their strength and hope with the group. The basic outline for that type of speaking is, what it was like, what happened, what's it like now. That's our basic outline. And so there's that type of meeting. Then there's discussion meetings, which are where if we were in person, we would sit in a circle and we would, normally what happens is we read some of the AA literature, and then there's discussion so people can share either something that they have found helpful that relates to what we read, or just something that's going on in their life.
Yeah.
So that's the main basis of it. Most of those types of meetings have rules around crosstalk, so you can't talk about someone else's share. You're not there to give advice. You're just there to listen.
Yeah.
So it's kind of like therapy in the sense that you're there talking about your shit, but not with like a licensed therapist or someone who's gonna, tell you things that you should do.
Yeah. Yeah. So what, in all honesty, I guess, as listeners, and even myself being very interested about this, what's keeping you from relapsing? In all honesty, as we mentioned earlier, there's a lot of triggers out there. A lot of people go through stress, depression. It's alcohol's on TVs, movies, newspapers. It's everywhere we see. So what's keeping you strong for so long?
The AA program. Seriously, if anyone is struggling with alcohol, go to AA and do what they tell you to do. I have what people would consider a relatively strict program. I am a sponsor. I have a sponsor. I go to meetings. I do service, which is where you just do things for the meetings. I work the steps, and I do that all the time consistently, whether I want to or not. So that's the basis of, for me. For me, AA is the way I stay sober.
That's good. That's very good. It's nice to hear, to be honest with you, because there's a lot of organizations out there, especially something like AA, that's volunteer. And that's the biggest thing, because I find with volunteer work or volunteer organizations that they sometimes fall off and they stray a different way. But it sounds like, I'm not sure if you want, you could say where you're going for AA, because it sounds like a very good organization and a very good group of people in the center that are providing help, which is the biggest thing with voluntary organization, is that one, that they're providing help, and the second thing is that they're showing results. Yes. And I assume you're going to the same place for the past 4 years.
Yes.
Yeah. So I would have to assume that this is a very good organization, a lot of good group of people there. Saying all this, have you seen people in your group that, since you've been there, like from the beginning, that are still there, or have some of them, sad to say, went back to alcohol?
The majority of people don't make it, like statistically wise.
Yes.
But the two groups that I am a member of have really good sobriety in them. So they have people there who have multiple years of sobriety. And so I've leaned on them and kind of learned a lot from them, and taken inspiration from them. One of the things that we kind of promote is to stay with the people who you want what they have. So and yeah, so I definitely learn the most from what we call old timers, so people who have been in the program for a long time.
Yeah.
And yeah, but it really is like a group of drunks learning to not drink together.
So I must say something now, because you keep saying a group of drunks. Would that be the correct term for that? Or that? So I'm putting you on the spot for this, because I'm going to disagree with this. And I'm pretty sure there might be some other people that might disagree with that term. Because my personal opinion, if you are, 4 years in, you're no longer a drunk. You are a hero. You are an overcomer. You're an achiever.
Yeah.
So I would say a group of people that want to achieve and are being very successful in their life. So I'm going to call you out on that one.
Okay. So there's two reasons I use group of drunks. So one is that one of the strongly suggested things in AA is to have a higher power of some sort. It doesn't have to be God. It doesn't have to be, it doesn't have to be any like spiritual thing. It can be just AA itself.
Yeah.
And so the reason I call us a group of drunks is because some people use AA as their higher power, because it's a power outside of yourself, and so it could be considered a higher power, and they have the ability to help you stay sober. And group of drunks is G.O.D. So every time so our literature was written in the 30s and the 50s, and they haven't been rewritten or anything. So a lot of the language is old school and they do say God a lot. So for people who have a hard time with the idea of God, our advice is often to replace that with group of drunks, because we are just
awesome.
a group of drunks helping each other stay sober.
Okay, you get a pass then. You get a pass.
Yeah. And then the other reason is also, yes, I have been sober for 4 years, but I am one drink away from a relapse. It would only take one tiny sip of alcohol for me to be a drunk. So reminding myself of that is also a very important thing in my own sobriety.
That's interesting. And it's interesting that you actually say that, because it really is, you're living on the edge when you think about it. Being past tense an alcoholic, it really is, and one drink, in the fact that you could just go back to your old habits, and you're really living on the edge. And it must, and honestly, like, the more I think about it, it is really hard to avoid these temptations with how life is in general. You have COVID, which let people, like, pretty much forced people to be self-isolation. That right there, I'm pretty sure, if I looked at stats, like, if there are stats on it, a lot of people became alcoholics. A lot of people are drinking more than they used to. So to avoid all that during COVID, huge applaud to you. A huge applaud to your AA meeting that continues, and those people that continue to seek help, that understand that, hey, people, to be honest with you, a lot of people, there could be a group of people that before COVID weren't alcoholic. As soon as they started COVID, they are alcoholic, and now they're seeking help because they know it's a change in their life. They know a change around them, that they're having, instead of having one drink or like one drink a week, now they're having like 5-6 drinks a day because of self-isolation and because of depression, because of losing their job. All these things promote addictions. So for you to be where you are, despite how the world is, again, with the pandemic and just life itself, I'm very proud of you, and I'm very proud of those organizations that are volunteer. And that's a key thing. It is volunteer. These, like, people don't have to show up to this. And I'm very happy that there are a group of people that actually do that for the community, for people that need and seek help. So I'm very proud that there is something like that out there.
Yes. Yeah. It's, you are right. COVID hit alcoholics and drug addicts pretty hard. There have been a lot of people who have relapsed, and then if you look at the statistics for opioid deaths, it has risen a lot since COVID started. So yeah, you're completely right. It's been really difficult to stay sober this year. I think for all of us, and thank God for Zoom, because that's the only way I get to meetings at this point.
Yeah, it's very true. Very true. Well, thank you very much. This has been very, very interesting. I've learned a lot, and hopefully the viewers have learned a lot. A lot of topics have came to mind in which I will be, I would say, interviewing you based off of what you said today and our previous conversations. So I'm hoping to see you again. So thank you for coming.
Oh, no problem. Thank you.
Any comments you want to make out to anyone that's seeking AA or want to join AA?
So if you are seeking out AA, you probably are an alcoholic. So get that question out of your head. And, you know, people who don't have a problem with drinking don't just come to our AA meetings. That's not something that happens. So if you are seeking out AA, just assume that you are an alcoholic and go in it with everything you have. Do every suggestion that is given to you, because that is the best way to stay sober.
Perfect. Thank you so much.
Thank you.
I know Paulo for over 2 years, and this is the first time I really spoken to her about her past. To interview someone or to learn about someone's past and understanding what they've been through and how they overcome it, it's very encouraging. I say that because alcohol, drugs, addictions, being in a toxic relationship, it's hard to get out of. And to actually have that willpower to know that, hey, I need to change. I need to be better than I was the day before. It is something that is very hard to do. So in my final conclusion, I would like to say anyone that is at that point in their life that is seeking help, please do so. It could be a life-changing decision. This is Chainsaw Phoenix, heading to the exit.